Hello, my name is Delcy Stanishin. I will be your host for tonight's program on the Dust Bowl in the Midwest. The Dust Bowl is a name to a particular decade of severe dust storms that was both natural and man-made. High dusty winds swept the region from Texas to Nebraska. Thousands of people died from starvation and pneumonia. Livestock perished and crops failed across the entire region. The Dust Bowl lasted from 1930 to 1940. It was known as the Dirty 30s. 1934 was the hardest year for farmers and locals, with no end in sight but the start of the rapture. The Dust Bowl highly impacted states like Oklahoma, Texas, and parts of New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas. However, the dust from the dust storms traveled all throughout the Midwest, reaching Montana and North Dakota. Dust storms had been known to travel to the coast of Texas, covering boats with dust. On May 11, 1934, there was a dust storm so large that it reached the Atlantic Ocean. It was 2 miles high and traveled 2,000 miles before reaching the East Coast. Here is a newspaper that dates back to April 15, 1935. Reading: Moisture-laden clouds gathered over the Southern California today, ending the threat of a dust storm by bringing promise of rain tomorrow or Tuesday. The vast cloud of yellowish-brown dust that swirled over Arizona as far as Colorado River Friday and Saturday had settled today as a result of water vapor in accumulating clouds and dust from the coast. Although rain fell generally in the Northern California within 100 miles of Los Angeles, weather observers did not expect the storm would reach the city until tomorrow. The dust storm was so massive, even people in Los Angeles feared the dust storm would arrive. Here is another newspaper from May 12, 1934. Reading: East covered with clouds of earth dust blown from drought-stricken Midwest. New England skies darkened as storm is whirled here from parched farmlands 1,000 miles away. Grain crop damage considered worst in years. The Dust Bowl was the accumulation of over-farming, outdated farming techniques that eroded the soil of all its ingredients, along with low precipitation, high record temperatures, and high winds. The Homestead Act of 1862 provided settlers with 160 acres of public land, and then the Kindred Act of 1904 allowed homesteaders to claim an additional 640 acres of land. These acts led to massive influx of new and inexperienced farmers across the Great Plains. They used farming techniques that broke down the soil. Organic material was leached out from over-farming the same crop on the same plot of land. 1930s was the start of a major drought along with extreme temperatures. Here is a table of the average drought condition in 48 states. As you can see here, the 1930s experienced low precipitation across the nation. Record high temperatures torched the lands of the nation. In this graph, you could see how hot it was compared to the 2 decades before. Here's a different map that illustrates extreme temperatures. As you can see here, that 1930 to 1940 had record high temperatures with no explanation to the cause of it. Unlike today, we can account our high temperatures to global warming. The 1930s were an anomaly that took everyone by surprise. The Midwest is the windiest area of all the states. Here is a map that shows how windy it is compared to the other states. The combination of eroded soil, drought, high temperatures, and wind all contributed to the epic dust storm of the century. The Dust Bowl intensified the crushing economic impacts of the Great Depression and drove many families on a desperate migration in search of work and better living conditions. About 2.5 million people migrated out of the Dust Bowl states. Some of these unfortunate people formed squatter camps. They were viewed as trespassers and criminals. An all-time famous movie called The Grapes of Wrath was inspired by the struggles and hardship of the squatter camps constructed from the Dust Bowl and Great Depression. Many people became sick from the dust, much like miners. The dust is harmful to lungs, causing asthma, bronchitis, and influenza. The people that became most impacted by the dust were infants, children, and elderly. Thousands died from the brown plague, in other words, pneumonia. Livestock perished, the crops failed, leaving hungry families. Many died from starvation. They didn't have wheat or corn to feed their livestock or make bread to feed their family. The effects of the Dust Bowl was detrimental to the Midwest and the stability of the country. The Dust Bowl became a lesson to farmers and the U.S. government. President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Congress established Natural Resource Conservation Service to promote new farming techniques to combat the problem of soil erosion. Over the next 7 years, the United States Forest Service planted more than 220 million trees on the Great Plains to protect farms from future dust storms costing $15 million. Nearly 100 years later, the Great Wall of Trees remained one of the most important landscape-scale projects in history to keep our land safe. There has been fears of dust storms reoccurring, but with advanced farming techniques and improved soil management, we will never experience an epic dust storm as we did in the 1930s.
Any more of them hamburgers, Ma?
No, they ain't. You made $1, and that's $1's worth.
$1's worth, that?
Well, they charge extra at that company store, and they ain't no other place.
Well, I ain't full.
Well, tomorrow you'll get in a full day's work and a full day's pay, and then we'll all have enough.
You wouldn't think just reaching up and picking it gets you in the back.